Hey, folks, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and thanks a ton for joining us today. My name's Logan. I'm with School Finder Scholarships Canada, and I am joined by Carmen Malo of the Imperial College London, one of the best schools in the UK, if not the world. She'll tell you all about it. Of course, we are recording the presentation. We will share it around next week, and we will also take questions in the chat. So please do fire any questions in there. We'll take them as we go. And yeah, otherwise, without further ado, thanks so much, Carmen, for taking the time out, and over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for taking a little bit of time out of your Friday night. I really appreciate it. As Logan mentioned, I'm Karmen Malo, so I'm the International Student Recruitment Officer for Imperial. I'm based in the US actually, so not too much of a time difference from all of you. But I'm really happy to tell you a little bit more about Imperial College. To start, I'm going to go through some more general information about our university, like London, supports, and then I'll go in a little bit more to the program applications for undergraduate and graduate students. All right, so first to introduce us. So to introduce Imperial, we are a little bit more unique. We are actually the only UK university to be focused completely on STEM and business courses. So really having that specialization sets us apart from other universities. And a lot of our programs, I'll talk a little bit more, but there's a lot of interdisciplinary approach among the different STEM fields. So let's give you a little bit of history and some facts about Imperial to start off. So we were founded in 1907 with with the merging of the Royal College of Science, the Royal School of Mines, and the City and Guilds College, which basically combined to become Imperial College London. Throughout the years, we've kind of shaped a little bit more. So in 1997, our medical school was founded through a series of mergers with other London universities, medical schools. And then in 2003, we added the faculty of the Imperial College Business School became a faculty. As far as our student population, so we are 23,000 students at the moment, full and part-time together. You can see on the other section, there's the undergrad numbers. We're about a little under 12,000 students for the undergrad. We have about 8,000 staff members, and we are founded in 4 faculties. So I'll talk a little bit more about each faculty later in the presentation. But we have the Faculty of Engineering, the Faculty of Natural Science, the Faculty of Medicine, and then the Imperial Business School. And we have 9 campuses. I'll go into a little bit more detail about those in a bit with the map. For undergrad, we do have a little bit over 110 programs. We have a little over 200 for postgraduates. There's a lot of different options if you're looking to come study with us. And just to give you an idea for undergrad, how many applications we typically get, it does vary by the program, but our average is about 9.6 applications for one spot. All right, oops, sorry. Sorry about that delay. There we go. So obviously there's a lot of different factors that are going to go into your decision making university, and not just rankings, but obviously careers, the program itself. But just to give you a little bit idea of where we rank, on the initial slide, you probably saw that we are ranked currently number 1 in the UK and Europe, and we are number 2 in the world as far as since the QS 2025 rankings. But just to give you an idea of where else we stand on different rankings. So for the Research Excellence Framework, that is a report that comes out every couple of years. The last one was in 2021, and it really looks at the inputs and effects of the research that universities are doing. And we actually had a greater proportion of research than other universities in the UK as of the last report. As far as graduate employment, so we were ranked again in the 2025 rankings this year as the number 1 university for graduate outcomes. So we have really strong history of our students finding careers shortly after graduation. Student satisfaction, so that is the report from the London Russell Group Universities, the National Student Survey. That actually looks at student experience, the class teaching, so a lot of different factors that students are voting on. And we were top in student satisfaction as far as the NSS 2023 report. And finally, our location. So London, obviously, is a great city to study in, but it's actually been voted the best city in the world for students in the last couple of runnings, and again, in the 2025 QS rankings. So a lot of different reasons to come study with us. Just looking a little bit more at the framework that I mentioned in the last slide, we were top in the UK, as I mentioned, for the for the overall proportion that we were putting out for research. We were first in the UK as well for research outputs and the research environment at our university. And the results were actually the best that Imperial has had to date. All right, so to give you a little bit more idea of where we are in London, we do have 9 campuses. The map, you'll see kind of different blue circles throughout the map, and those will be the campuses that we have. So we have the South Kensington campus, which you can see a little bit below the Hyde Park square on this map. So that is our main campus. It is the central campus, so all of the student facilities like dining, classrooms, gym, things like that, they're all going to be very central to the area. We're about 5 minute walk from Hyde Park. Really close to a tube stop. It's about 2 minutes down from the edge of campus. So really close to public transit, a lot of activities in London. The other campuses will have around Charing Cross, Chelsea, and Westminster, just to name a few. And we have a new campus as well in White City, which I'll show a picture of in a second. Depending on which program you're applying, we'll have listed on the website which campus you'd be studying on. So that'll give you an idea of where in London that you'd be for the majority of your program. Just to show you a little picture of the campuses. So South Kensington, like I mentioned, that's going to be our main campus. In the picture, you'll see the Queen's Tower. Right now, it's actually being refurbished, but that is what it normally will look like. We should have it back to normal soon. But you'll see that we have a really nice outside sitting area. So when the weather's nice, there's a lot of spots to sit on park benches, different kind of spots in the grass that you can camp out in. Behind it, there's a building that has a lot of the students' study areas. One of the engineering buildings is right behind that as well. So it is a very central space. Just to the right of that too, there's one day a week where there's actually a farmer's market too, which is kind of cool. I got to experience when I was over on campus in December, but a lot of different vendors come. So there's food trucks, there's going to be places you can buy fruits and vegetables, but just kind of gives another element to the campus that you can enjoy while you're studying there. In White City, that is our newest campus. That's a little bit more north of the side of London, but that'll be an idea of some of the buildings that we have there. All right, so just to go into the faculties a little bit more. For the Faculty of Engineering, we do have 10 different departments within there. So aeronautical engineering, material sciences, there's going to be a lot of different programs that you can study, like computing. For majority of programs for undergrad, it typically is 3 years or 4 years. 4 years would include things like an integrated master's degree, or some of the programs will have options to do a year abroad, a year in industry. So depending on which of those options you're choosing, it could be 3 to 5 years on the program. For postgrad, majority of the programs are going to be 1 year. So we'll have the program start in October and go to September. But you would be working in the classroom through end of May, and then during the summer, you'd be working on research programs for our courses. Just to give you an idea of some of the facilities for the Faculty of Engineering. So we have the carbon capture pilot plant. That is actually one of the only facilities open to undergraduate students for research. So you do get a lot of opportunities to study and get research experience really early on if you're an undergraduate student. Some other facilities, so for aeronautical, we'll have flight simulators, we'll have wind tunnels, but there's a lot of different labs, spaces that students will have the opportunity to use while they're studying with us. For the Faculty of Natural Sciences, so for postgrad students, we have the Center of Environmental Policy. Other courses we'll have in chemistry, life sciences, mathematics, physics. So there's a lot of different options within those programs. Some will have more courses related to management within there. Some will be more research focused. One thing that I really love is the chemical kitchen. I'm a huge foodie, and I think a lot of people forget how much science is actually involved in there. But it's actually a professional kitchen that we have on campus that students have the opportunity to kind of work on different chemistry fundamentals with chemistry around food. I know recently I saw there was a video where they were working with different cooking techniques and kind of the chemical process between them to make really crispy potatoes for the winter holidays. But it's kind of a cool concept to really see the students use the skills that they're learning in the lab and kind of use it in a different manner. All right, so next is the Faculty of Medicine. So we do have medical biosciences. For the MBBS, that's going to be our medical degree for students that want to become a practicing doctor or surgeon. For us, it is 6 years. So that includes a integrated bachelor's degree as well. So you would do the 5-year MBBS plus the integrated bachelor's degree. And we also have a 4-year graduate program as well for MBBS. So if you have a bachelor's degree prior. For the postgraduate programs for the Faculty of Medicine, so we have programs that are going to be more focused on brain sciences, some that are going to be more focused on infectious disease, public health. So there's a lot of different ways that if you are looking at doing a postgraduate program in the School of Medicine that you can focus with your research. Within the School of Medicine, so one of the facilities is the lab pods. It's actually part of the BSc Medical Biosciences program. So it gives the students an environment where they can actually get real life research experience. And that starts with them spending 1 day per week in the lab during the first 2 years of the program. The last faculty then is our College of Business. Sorry, I just need to take a sip of water really quick. Yeah. So for business, we do have the BSc Economics, Finance, and Data Science. So that's going to take a really in-depth look at economics and finance, and students do have a mathematical background in that. So you do get a deep dive into the data science portion of it. Some of the other programs, I'll talk a little bit more about the iExplore a little bit later for undergraduate students, but that is one option for students that are in other programs where they can get a little bit of business experience doing the Business and Professionals of Engineering and Science course. Okay. For postgraduate students, there are a wide range of business courses available. So this would be more related in finance, focused on marketing. We'll have MBA, economics and public policy. So there's a little bit wider range of programs available in the School of Business for postgraduate students. So one thing about Imperial is we are really focused on interdisciplinary research. So our Global Challenge Institutes are set up really to look at real world issues that are going on. So one thing is that with those issues, they are a little bit more broad for just one faculty to really focus on. So this is a different institutes that we really take an interdisciplinary approach on. So faculty and students from different programs will be really working together. So just looking at a few of those, that'd be the Energy Future Lab, some molecular science and engineering, but those would be different faculties then working together on different issues like climate change, infectious disease, energy crisis, just to name a few. All right, so iExplore, as I mentioned, I'm just going to come back to this. So if you're an undergraduate student, you actually have the opportunity within your program to take a module in another course, which is a really nice way to develop another skill outside of the major. I know I talked to some of our students when I was on campus, and they really enjoyed being able to take something like Imperial Horizons, which is an opportunity to take humanities related course. So if you are, doing STEM and you want a little bit of break to focus on languages or history, that's one option. Other ones are doing the multidisciplinary project where you would be working with students from another program on an issue. Or some that are STEM-based modules where you can maybe you're taking chemistry, but you actually, want to take a course in engineering or biology. That would give you the opportunity as well. The nice thing is they are actually built into your degree, so you don't have, to work them around your schedule outside your major. It really gives you the opportunity to expand your knowledge and your expertise outside of your major that you're studying. All right. So one question is that I get all the time for undergrad students is if you can get involved in research. There are a lot of opportunities that you can do. So for the International Research Opportunity Program, that's actually an option where you can go to another country and you can get research experience over the summer or during a short break. But it gives you really an opportunity to get hands-on experience outside of your classes. With the other one, that's the Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, that gives you an opportunity to get mentorship through your faculty as well. So there is a lot of different opportunities that you can explore on our website. And we do have a magazine too that you can listen to, or the podcast where you can hear about what students have been working on through those programs. Right. For master's degree students, we also have the Early Career Researchers Institute, which for people who are early on in their career, maybe they're working on their PhD or they've, are kind of an earlier faculty researcher. This is an opportunity where you can get support and work really to get experience doing graduate teaching, or you can do career development for PhD students. So there's a lot of different workshops and mentorship opportunities for students who want to get that research experience early on while they're in their degrees as a postgraduate student. And I should mention this was founded last year in October 2024, so it's really been growing the last couple of months. All right. So industrial connections, obviously, after graduation, you really want to make sure that you have strong ties to the industry. And Imperial has some really great connections that our students have worked with over the years. One collaboration that we have is with Dyson. So we have the Dyson School of Design Engineering, which was founded after a generous donation from the James Dyson Foundation. But students there are working, on different products and design, like not just focusing on the engineering aspect of it, but kind of the product design, things like that. So it is a little bit more of a creative side of engineering. Some other ones that we have, so we do work with IBM and Meta, AstraZeneca. So there are a lot of ties where our students are working and our faculty are working with outside partnerships to work on things like AI, medical programs, like I said, the design engineering. So there are a lot of opportunities while you're on our campus to develop those skills and kind of network with different companies throughout your time with us. So one thing is obviously you are studying, and that is you're coming over to the UK. But one thing everyone always asks is about student life, and is it all going to be in the lab, the classroom, or do you have some time that you can actually experience London and kind of the outside world? And that is one thing we do have a lot of opportunities. So one thing is what is studying in London like? As I mentioned earlier, is ranked number one for students. But there is a lot of opportunities to explore London. I personally actually did my undergrad in the US, but I studied abroad in London, and one semester was definitely not enough time for me there. There are absolutely an overwhelming amount of museums in London. A lot of them are going to be free. You only really pay for special exhibits. So you have a lot of opportunities to kind of dip in and out of museums throughout your time there. And I'll talk a little bit more about the ones that are near our campus in the next slide. But there's a lot of opportunities too for traveling to different cities in the UK, traveling through Europe. Theater is also very cheap in London, so you can get day of tickets to a lot of really great shows. But it is a city that there's just so much to explore as far as traveling and shopping and food. There really is, it's hard to be bored in London, basically. Just to give you an idea of kind of student life in our area around the South Kensington campus. So on the map here, you can see the outline of the campus. We are really close to the Kensington Gardens and the Hyde Park right down the road. It's about a 5-10 minute walk. So Hyde Park is an enormous park. You can spend a lot of time exploring different pathways there. On the edge of campus, we also have the Science Museum, the Natural History Museum, and the Victoria Albert Museum is also on the edge of campus. So there's a lot of opportunities, like even just around the campus, that you can go and explore different things like history, science. So really, you don't have to go too far from campus to really experience it. And right across the street from campus also is the Royal Albert Hall. So that actually is currently where our graduations happen. So it's a really gorgeous hall that students have the opportunity to do the graduation ceremony in. Besides that, obviously you want to get involved with activities outside of your classes. So one thing we have is the Imperial Student Union. That's an opportunity to join, or sorry, they host a number of clubs that you have the opportunity to join while you're with us. So this slide will have list a few of them, but there's clubs related to sports. There's going to be ones that are more related to your major, different interests like hobbies like art or music. But if you don't see a club, there's always opportunities to start one too. So there's a lot of different interests and things that you can join. At the start of the semester, there's always welcome fairs as well. So you have the opportunity to kind of walk around and really get to know the clubs and ask questions. So you kind of have a jump start then to getting involved with the social life when you first come to campus. All right. And as far I meant to mention sports, but just to give you an idea, I know North America, some universities, we have really big sports cultures. There's always a stadium on campus or, a big following. Sports in the UK, they can be a little bit more casual, but we do have some performance programs. So we do have 90 competitive clubs that are focused at university level. So there is what's called the Bucks League in the UK, and a lot of our teams will compete in that. There are some more casual ones too. So if you really just want to do some pickup games or get more intramural style experience, we do have those options as well. So really broad range from more casual to more competitive sports as an option. Just to give you an idea of some of the social facilities on campus. So we do have the Imperial College Union. So there's going to be more nightlife there. There's kind of a little pub that you can hang out in. On campus too, there's a lot of cafes around the area. So we have one that's a little bit more food court style that you can get everything from like pizza to rice bowls, kind of different things like that. There's a couple more coffee shop style places. There's one that's more sandwiches and things like attached to the library. So there's a lot of different options for dining on campus, and as well as like nightlife and different activities outside of the classroom as well. So obviously, if you're coming to London, there's a lot of new changes that you're going to be doing. And we do have a lot of supports if you are coming over. So the support team, they're going to be there for things like finances, accommodations. I'll talk a little bit more about housing and things in a little bit, but if you have any questions, they're always a good resource for you to to help you. Within your program too, you'll have a personal tutor. So they're going to be there if you need more guidance about your program. If you have questions maybe about a particular class that you're struggling with, or you need some additional support, they're going to be able to work with you. The student counseling, mental health is also another service. We have ones that are going to be more for the halls. You'll have support within the dorms as well. But there's just a number of different resources there that if you need them, you'll be able to find them on campus. For international students too, there is more support that's dedicated to the visas, to things like moving and working in the UK. They'll be able to offer guidance while you're on campus. And like I mentioned, there's a lot of social activities too. So those are going to be year round. There's going to be a lot of options for you to explore London and meet your classmates and people around the city. All right. So housing is always a big concern if you are moving to a new country. Um, As far as housing for undergraduate students, we do guarantee it the first year if you would like to apply. There's no requirement to live in the dorms your first year. As far as the rent, they are all inclusive. And so there's once a term payments that you'll be making, you can set those up with the housing team. They are safe and secure. So if you are living in the dorms, you're going to have CCTV, there's card access to your dorm. And one thing that's nice, I know a lot of North American housing, we will have the students move out. Like I had to move out of my housing in winter break, but you actually don't need to move out of it in the holidays. So if you are staying over the winter break and you want to stay in your dorm, that is a possibility. One thing with residence halls in the UK too in general and with Imperial is most of them are going to be single rooms actually. There are some doubles, but generally speaking, you'll have your own room and then prices kind of vary if you are doing, more shared facilities or if you're doing like a set aside like in suite bathroom and kitchen or space. So after the first year, there are still some like sports as far as that. You can apply for housing on campus. Generally, a lot of students they feel they've kind of made their friends. They want to move on to the next phase of their student life, maybe find a shared housing or kind of live in the same area. So we do have a lot of supports for that. We'll have private housing events on campus, so that'll be an opportunity for you to get resources, meet different local agents and landlords. There is a service too that they will look over contracts. So if you have questions before you sign a housing lease, that's an option as well. And we'll have classes as well too if you have any questions about different housing options in London. For graduate housing, so that we do have resources as well for that. So we have two sites through GradPad, which is a housing service in London, so that we'll have a website link there. There are options too, so if you are coming over by yourself or if you're coming with a spouse or family member, there are a lot of options for single or couple accommodation. So the prices for those will vary. And we do have accessible housing as well, so I should mention that if you do need any setup for accessibility, our housing team will help work with you on that. And there is different solutions too. So if you are looking for private housing, again, we'll have, find a flatmate events, we'll have the housing events. So there are a lot of different resources for postgraduate students as well as in terms of finding housing. All right. So now one question is always how do I apply? I'm going to go through the undergraduate student applications first, and then I will go through postgraduate towards the end, just to give you a little heads up. For undergraduate students, we do look at the Canadian diploma. So if you are looking at one of our undergraduate courses, we will have those qualification requirements for each program listed out. For the UK in general, usually the academic schools all set different entry requirements. So it's really important that you look at the program page that you're considering for the exact entry requirements that we'd be looking for. For Canadian diplomas, we typically look for certain year 12 courses. For international baccalaureate diplomas, if you're doing that, we do look for 38 to 40 points overall general. But again, your program will list off exactly what they look for in terms of the IB overall score. And then they will also lift off the higher level courses that they're looking for you to take. This is the 2025 deadlines. So if you are applying in later years, be sure to check UCAS just for any changes. But generally, the application portal opens up in May, so you are able to make that application at that time. For us, we do have some deadlines that we will follow for different exams. So from July to September, if you are applying to one of our medical programs and need to take the UCAT, that would be the test window typically. For those programs, we do follow the October deadline, so you would need to apply by October 15th at 6 p.m. UK time. Definitely make sure you make note of the time difference if you are applying to one of those programs. For some of our programs, we will have exams called TMU and ESAT, so I'll talk about those a little bit more in the later slides. But for those exams, there's going to be 2 sittings that you would need to apply for either one of those. So for this past year, it was October 15th or 17th. It'll be similar dates next year, so please make note of those if you're applying for later years. If you do not take the October one, you would have to sit the January sitting then. So that was January 7th and 9th of this year. But we'll have kind of earlier cutoff dates for applying for those. So this past year, December was the registration deadline for the January exam. So if your program does need one of those, it's really important that you make sure you register by the deadline for the program for the exam dates. For some of our programs too, we'll have interviews, and I'll show a slide in a little bit about which ones do require the interviews, but those typically take place in November until February the next year. And then for this year, if you are still applying, January 29th is going to be the equal consideration deadline. Again, make note of the time difference. That is 6 p.m. UK time that you would need to apply for it by. So as far as the admissions tests and the interviews that I mentioned, not all of our programs require an exam, but the majority of the ones listed here we will have. So for ESAT, that's going to be an engineering related exam, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And TMUA, that's going to be a mathematic related exam. But for some of the courses like chemistry, life science, those do not require one of those exams. So applications are still open at the moment. You'll also see listed here if they have an interview. On our website, we'll list off exactly what that looks like for each of the programs, and I'll give a few examples in a moment. But for each department, they'll set their policies about the interviews and the exams that they're looking for. So really important, again, that you look at the program pages. All right, so just to give you an idea of more of the engineering ones, again, most of these programs will require the ESAT or the TMUA, and then some will have the interviews as well. Let's pause for 1 more minute so you can read it for a second. All right, and then I will go into the ESAT exams. This one is for more engineering focused classes. Sorry. To give you an idea of the ESAT, so it is a multiple choice computer-based exam. You would register through the website and then make an appointment for a Pearson VUE testing center. So those you would be able to find one in your area. They are global. You don't need to come to UK for the exam. As far as the setup of the exam, there's a couple different modules that you would take. So all students do need to take the mathematics exam, mathematics 1 module, but then the program page that you're listing, the page for the program that you're going to be applying to, they'll list off if there's additional modules. So most students do need to take at least 3 modules, need to take 3 modules. So we'll list off the other 2 that you would need to take for the program. So for your example, they have mathematics 1, but then you might need to take the physics module or the chemistry module. The only program that doesn't have a 3rd module for us is design engineering. So if you are taking that program, there's only 2 modules required. One thing to note too is with the 2 testing days, we only do accept the first score. So if you did sit it a second time, we wouldn't accept that second score. We would be looking at the first one that you've taken. The other exam is the TMUA, that's the mathematic related exam. Again, this is a multiple choice computer-based exam. You would register on the website again, and then you would go to the Pearson testing center in your area for the exam. This one is about 2 hours and 30 minutes is the typical sitting, and it's 2 parts. So the first one is the application of mathematical knowledge. That one we're really trying to assess your current mathematical knowledge and how you apply that to new situations. The other one is mathematical reasoning. So that's looking more at your ability to deal with mathematical problems and use simple elementary knowledge to really apply that to the different problems. For both of the exams, it is testing more of your current knowledge out of high school, so we're not expecting you to take an additional course to study it. There are testing materials available on their website, so we'd really recommend you going through and reviewing those before the exam. As I mentioned in that table, a lot of our programs do interviews. So we do have a couple different interview styles that different programs will use. And again, it'll be listed on the site, what we would expect for the program you're applying to. So some of them, it might be a one-to-one interview. It could be kind of a shorter, more casual interview. It could be a little bit more formal. I know for design interview, they might ask you to give a couple examples of more creative work that you've done at the end. Some of these will be more panel interviews, so you might have a few different academics from the department in the interview. Some might be a group activity, and then others like medicine, they're going to do a multi-mini interview, so they'll have different stations for those. If you do get invited to an interview, though, that will give you more information about what to expect during day of. And here are just a few examples of the different interviews that we do have. So design engineering, that is a one-to-one interview. So they're really focusing more on questions like mathematics, engineering, design communication skills. For computing, that is one-to-one, but they're going to cover a little bit more about what you wrote in your personal statement. So some of these, it's really good to review that personal statement that you wrote for the UCAS application just to prepare a little bit more. You may need to give a presentation too for admissions tutors. They'll give you a topic maybe to present on. Some of them you'll have opportunities to afterwards to do Q&A with current students, or you'll have kind of different exams like what your motivation is, sorry, an exam, interview questions like what is your motivation for studying the program. For the interviews too, we really do recommend you spend some time thinking of questions for the academics because we really want you to use this opportunity to see that this is going to be a good fit for you. So really having some questions about the program and kind of outcomes, things that you want to know about the course that you're applying to is really important. And for the multi-mini interview, so that is a little bit more focused on different stations, like I mentioned. So you might have one stations that are more focused on leadership and your ability to do teamwork. You might have some that are more focused on multitasking. So they'll give you a little bit more information if you do get selected for that. But it'll be a little bit different style than some of the other interviews that we typically do. If you are writing the UCAS, we do have the personal statement on there. For the personal statement, it is a little different than some that you might write for North American universities in general. For us, we really want you to use this as a powerful way to stand out from other applicants. So it's your opportunity to give us more like extra information outside of just your qualification section. But we really want you to demonstrate your academic interest, different things that you've done to get interested in the particular field that you're applying to, your suitability for the field. You do have 4,000 characters to talk about. So about this, you do need to be concise, but really you have the opportunity to pick a few examples and really expound on them. Basically, look at the personal statement as an interview on paper. To really ask yourself like what we would want to know and really make sure that you highlight that. This is read by the admissions tutor, so please make sure feel like you can talk about the field that you're studying in. You don't need to, kind of like try to summarize it for someone that's just focused more on admissions. So as somebody that's going to be in the academic school that's going to be familiar with the field that you're applying to. As far as what you focus on it, we really want to look at extracurricular things just a little bit. Like maybe you were in a club that you want to focus on your team building skills or some leadership skills that you built fostered during that time. But really, we want to focus on your supercurricular. So are there maybe things that you've done in the classes that you've developed skills for this particular major, or maybe there are podcasts or different things that you've taken like outside of your classes that have kind of fostered that and made you interested in the field a little bit more. But really, what have you done to really gain expertise and get in kind of more ingrained in the field that you're applying to? And really, when you're writing the personal statement for us, or in general, think, what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? What have you done so far to become prepared for that field? Just to give you a really quick idea of what to do. So, please do be enthusiastic, be specific, again, talk about supercurriculars or work experience that's really come in to play for your major. And please do, check it a couple times for grammar, spell checking. But some things that we do not look for in the personal statement. So please don't be vague or leave out supporting evidence if you are making some claims in there. Do not talk excessively about one university because this will be shared across your other UCAS choices as well. And if you are, putting one thing in your qualifications, don't feel like you need to repeat it again in the personal statement. We really want this to be an opportunity for you to talk more about the things you've done outside of just those qualifications you've studied. In general, what do we look for? We really want to look at why you studied this, or sorry, why you want to study this, what you've done again outside of the activities and outside of your classes, so readings, activities, things like that. and again, your motivation for studying the subject. Right, so for master students, the application, for undergrad, you'd be doing that for UCAS, through the UCAS application. For postgrad students, it is direct through our website, so that'll be a little bit different. For the entry requirements, we do look at your first degree that you've completed for undergraduate. So in the UK, that's a honors degree. We will have the exact qualifications we look for Canada, so definitely check the program websites for the GPA that we'd be looking for. On the website too, we'll list off if there's any specific fields that we are looking for as terms of what your major was for your undergrad. So each program will list off what their exact requirements would be. When you are applying, you do get to pick up to 2 courses typically, with the exception of the business school. So really be mindful of which programs that you're applying to at the time. For some courses, there may be some extra requirements outside of academics. So you might need to get approval through the ATEC, which is the Academic Technology Approval Scheme. So that'll be listed in your conditions of your offer if that's something that you need to do if you get an offer from us. For the deadlines, really be mindful of looking at those when you're looking at our programs. Some do rolling admissions, so that would be just open until basically the places are full. Some do rounds, so it's really important that you look at the deadlines for which round, for the rounds that are open currently. So some will have like first round open to a certain part of fall or later on, but just be really mindful of those application date rounds when you're starting your application. Right. And as far as PhD, so this is a little bit different as well. So you will typically need to have a relevant master's degree qualification. For the applications for PhD, it is a little bit different where you typically will need to search online first for a supervisor. Some programs will have it kind of listed more like a job opening where they'll have a topic or a specific project that they're looking for PhD applicants for. Others, you may need to reach out to a potential supervisor and have a discussion about them, about the project that you're looking to do and if they'd be a good fit. So really make sure you read the website prior to that and make sure that what the route is for each of the programs that you're looking for. There is no set deadline for a PhD versus the master's because you can start at different times of the year. So definitely look at kind of when you're planning to start just to have time for the application. And again, there may be some requirements like the ATAS for the program PhD that you're applying to. All right, so financing your studies. This is just to give you an idea of kind of the average cost for the halls of residence. If you're looking at private accommodations, the difference with the rent prices. Then again, the cost of average living with food, travel. Zone 1 and 2, so on the underground system, the central part of London is zone 1, and then it goes out 2, 3, 4. So this is just giving you an idea if you were kind of traveling around central and the near central parts of London. And then personal leisure, obviously, that's going to depend on, if you're doing a lot of travel or if you're kind of doing more eating out, different activities. But that just gives you kind of a general idea of the potential costs. As far as financial support, so we do have a scholarship database that you can search. So depending on the program you're applying, it'll list off different opportunities. If you are doing the IB diploma for undergraduate students too, we also have the Excellence Scholarship. So that's £5,000 per year for each year that your course lasts. And we'll have more information about that on the website about how that's decided. Sorry, I'm losing course here. For Canadian students too, if you are on our North America website, we do have more information too if you are looking at using the provincial loans about how that works. Right. And then just to give you an idea of some other ways that you can learn more about us. So we do have a mailing list if you would like to receive more updates. So that QR code will take you to our website. You can sign up for undergrad or postgrad. We do have study tours. So if you are coming over just for a quick trip to London, you can sign up for an in-person tour with one of our student ambassadors. If there isn't a date that lines up their tour, there's also things like online app that you can download and do a self-guided tour. Or there's going to be kind of different appointments you can make too, that if you're coming to campus, you can get a one-to-one appointment with the recruitment team and have questions answered. If you can't travel over to London, we also have a lot of online opportunities. So there's going to be things like taster lectures. So your particular program will do kind of a talk that you can sit through, ask questions about the program from current students. Or if you're also on our website, there's a web page called Unibuddy, and you'll see a text box pop up on our website. But that'll give you the opportunity to message our current students and alumni to ask them questions about what it's like to study with us. All right. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the questions.
Superb. And thanks a ton, Carmen, for walking us through it. We do have a couple questions in the chat, and I would encourage anyone listening live to drop any other questions you might have. We'll get started there, and then we'll take some from the Reg as well. First off, though, we've got one from Nirmal, a couple of questions. One specifically about age of admission. Is there an age requirement? Do you have to be 18 to register for an undergrad program?
So for medicine, there is an age requirement, and that's a government regulation. So if you're applying to medicine and you're under 18 at the time of the start of the program, there's more information on their website about deferred applications. So if you aren't going to be 18 at the time of the start, that is actually unfortunately a regulation.
Wow, interesting. I did not know that, so it's a
Yeah,
great
but that's
question.
specific to medicine. So yeah, that is a great question.
Fair enough. Okay, specific to medicine, yeah, you do need to be 18. So thanks, Normal, for raising that. She's also wondering when and how you would submit grade 12 grades, since the application is sort of earlier than high school students will typically have their finalized grades. So would you be looking at grade 11, provisional grades? Do you have any sense of that?
Yeah, so typically if you are still in your year 12, obviously we know you're not going to have your grades till later in the spring. When you are filling out the UCAS, you will kind of like your known scores that we have. If admissions has questions, they'll reach out about getting a transcript or additional information. But you will need to list out any of the year 12 classes you're planning to take. What happens then typically is if you have classes that you're planning to take, or if you're in the IB2 and you haven't finished your higher levels, what happens then is your reference will get a message from us asking for your predicted grades. And they'll come from UCAS. But basically, your reference then will need to go in there and put in your predicted grades for any of the outstanding classes. And then we'll be able to use kind of that predicted grade to make a decision. But if you do get an offer and you are still in school, that would be conditional offer typically. And then that would be conditional on you submitting those final test scores then. And once you get them, that's another really
Sure.
good question.
Yeah, it is, and a bit of
Because
a
yeah, I know the
complex
timelines
answer.
for we're expecting the application by January, and yeah, you won't be done with school till May or June.
Yeah, fair. Okay, we've got a question from Carrie with a hand up. I'm going to allow the mic. Carrie, you should be able to speak now if you unmute.
Yes.
Um, Go
Hello?
ahead.
Hello? Can you
Hello.
hear me?
Yep, yep, we can hear you.
I had a question about the applications. When you said the applications are in May, is that May of your grade 11 year, or is that May of your grade 12 year?
Yep. So the application portal opens in May. So if you are a rising senior, if you're at the end of your year 11, you can go in there and start the application in May. Basically, you can go in there and start your profile. You can start putting your information in, start kind of drafting your personal statement, but you won't be able to actually start submitting it until September when that part of it opens up. And then at that point in your senior year, if you are looking to apply for the medical program or if you're doing Oxford or Cambridge as one of your choices, they do follow that October deadline. So you'd be submitting that in October of your senior year, then your year 12. Or if you're doing any of the other programs that follow the equal consideration deadline, then you would be doing January of your spring semester, your final year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, it's nice you can
Um,
set up the profile up early because then you have time over the summer to kind of refine it and really start looking at it a little bit more.
Probably a good idea. And any application, you should always have somebody else look it over before you submit it.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we've got some more cues coming in. One of the big ones, of course, people are always wondering about funded scholarships. Fully might be a bit a bridge too far, but certainly people are wondering about financial aid and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, UK in general, scholarships do tend to be a little bit smaller bursaries. I know here in North America, there are a lot more fully funded options. But I would definitely, encourage you if you are looking at scholarships to look at our scholarship database, because that'll give you a better idea of kind of the different options that might be available to you based on the program that you're applying to.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have any sense of are there certain programs that are better funded than others, to your knowledge?
Yeah, I don't actually have that off the top of my head what the average for a program would be. So
Fair. Yeah, it's a tough question. Okay, we've got another here from Mohammed. English language requirements for those who did undergrad studies in English, sub-Saharan African country, but undergrad in English. would they be able to get away without having to pass like IELTS or equivalent?
Yeah, so admissions would definitely need to assess that, but I know there are some qualifications if you have studied like a previous degree recently in English. I think that is an opportunity that they would have. But it would be kind of admissions would need to look at the qualification in the previous studies.
Yeah, fair enough.
We'll have more
Always,
information on our website too about the English language like exceptions around those.
yeah, beauty. A when in doubt, reach out and ask kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. If you have, yeah, please feel free to reach out to us.
Beauty. Okay, so kind of a general question. How difficult is it to secure admission? Maybe as a Canadian student, just sort of in general, how competitive are admissions? Do you have a sense of the ratio of admitted to not?
Yeah, that's always a good question and pretty common one. So yeah, our applications are really competitive. One thing that can give you an idea of just how competitive the program you're applying to is we do have on our pages how many applications we typically get per spot in the program. So that'll give you an idea of how competitive that particular program is. For medicine, there is a limit typically of how many international students we can take. So that program for international students in general will be a little bit more competitive. For other programs, there's not a home versus international. So it really is just more how many places we have for that particular program. But I would definitely, if you are looking to apply, definitely read over the program, their selection process, if they do interviews and how to prepare for that, just to really, make your application as competitive as possible. And we do have a lot of resources too. There's a lot of webinars on demand or coming up where you can hear more about like the personal statement, the interview process, how students have kind of worked through that process and prepared for things like the ESAT and TMUA and UCAT.
Yeah, that's good advice too. Check out other like dedicated events, right?
Yeah, and I was going to mention just as far as admission statistics. So typically at UK universities that isn't as listed as similarly as US. I know here in the US States and Canada, like you might have more of a 7% of this applications get selected. In the UK, it is a little bit different where we don't have those listed statistics in the same way. So it'd be more about the applications per place.
Appreciate that. Looks like we've got another from Carrie. So Carrie, I'm gonna allow you, Mike. You should be able to speak if you unmute. Go ahead.
Take a sip of water quick.
So you said there's a 38 to 40 mark requirement for the International Baccalaureate program. Can you apply if you have less than that, or if your
Yeah.
predicted is less?
So that is the general range. I would definitely check out the individual program that you're looking to apply to see what their exact score would be. Because it's set by each individual program. I would say in general with the UK, if you don't believe you're going to meet that, you would probably want to look at other programs. You only get 5 choices on the UCAS, so we really want to make sure that you are going to meet those requirements. I know in North America, some of the admissions can be a little bit more holistic, but in the UK, it is a little bit more of a set score that we're looking for a lot of those exams.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question. Great. Okay. And please do, if others have questions, keep them coming. You can raise your hand, you can put them in the chat, and we'll tackle them as best we can in the next 10-ish minutes. Otherwise, I do have a couple of more from the reg process. And this one is about working and working maybe during studies on or off campus, especially when doing grad studies. Is it typically recommended? Is it frowned upon if somebody's doing an MSc and they're trying to work part-time on or off campus? Is that common, recommended?
Yeah, so if you are in a student visa, you are allowed to work 20 hours a week during the normal semester. Designated breaks, you can work longer, and our advice and counseling would be the best to advise about when exactly that is and the regulations around that. But I would say, like, particularly for a master's, it is, it's a 1 year program. There's not a summer break like North America calendar typically has. So it is pretty intensive. So I would say, it is really kind of up to personal preference and how much you feel like your workload is. I know some students will maybe do less than that just to get, a little bit of spending money, but have, still a little bit more sanity around studying. But I think it really just depends on the individual student if they've decided to take on that opportunity. I know some kind of decided to focus the whole year on their studies, and then there is an option if you graduate from a UK school that you can do what's called the graduate route, and it gives you 2 years to stay in the UK after. So some students use that then as the work opportunity after graduation. Um, But yeah, I would say it definitely depends on the student, the individual student in the program. I would say if you're kind of trying to get an idea of what other students have done or kind of the average student life, I would say definitely reach out through Unibuddy to some of our current students just to get an idea of what their kind of day to day is and if they've done working on top of their master's degree or undergrad. So
Yeah, great advice. Unibuddy, any way you can chat with somebody who is already there, right, and pick their brain.
absolutely.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that response. Looks like we've
Yeah.
got another from Carrie. So, Carrie, as before, go ahead.
Thank you. What do you mean like by the school year? Like how does the school year work?
Yeah, so for undergraduate, it is pretty similar to North America, although it does start a little bit later. So this year we started kind of early October was when the semester started. So if you are like undergraduate application, I would especially kind of be mindful of the fact that the timeline might be a little bit later than if you're applying to a North American university. Typically, housing applications are going to be a little bit later. You're going to be getting your schedule a little bit later, but it is similar where we'll have the fall semester then, and then the spring semester, and then you'll have a summer break. For master's degree students, that is a little bit different timeline where you start, it is one full calendar year. So we wouldn't have the summer break the same way that North American universities typically do. It's almost kind of more like a trimester where you have your fall and your spring as your more top classes. And then you would have the summer as your research, your dissertation, or whatever project your program would have. One difference with that is that would be more of an MSc. If you're doing a MRes, which is a research focused degree, that actually is 1 year of research. So you might have one research project, or you might have a couple of mini projects throughout the year, but it would still be a one calendar year.
Okay, I also have another question. Do you offer co-op?
So we have a lot of our programs, they'll have kind of either built-in internships or they'll have what's called year in industry. So depending on the program, there might be different opportunities built in that you can do work options.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Carrie. We do have a couple more questions in the chat.
these are great questions. So
Yeah, certainly. Keep them coming. This one's Alessandro, pretty straightforward. Is it possible to apply if you obtained your IB diploma a year ago? So maybe you've done your gap year or equivalent. Is it still, are you still eligible to apply?
absolutely. I would say one thing is I think the UK gap years are a little bit more common, so it's not frowned upon absolutely with the application. One thing that is though, we're going to want to know what you've been doing in that year. So if you have, things you can write about your personal statement or ways that you can provide more information about that, because we do want to know, have you gained some skills during that time? Did work experience? Maybe there's something related to the program you're applying to that you've done in the last year. Just kind of a little bit more information about what you've done with that year between studies.
Makes sense to me. One more from Normal as well. This is getting kind of into the weeds, but if you take grade 12 summer courses, shore up your grades, repair perhaps, are those grades considered? Can they kind of take the place of the predicted marks?
Oh, I actually do not know that off the top of my head. So yeah, please do contact us with that one. I'm happy to follow up.
Yeah, totally fair. So you did allude to, you sort of anticipated one of the questions that I had, which was post-grad work permit and equivalent. You mentioned it's possible to stay in the UK after graduating. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So yeah, the UK has a scheme called the graduate route. So that is an option if you finish a full degree in the UK that you can work with the visa team to update your documents and you'll be able to stay for 2 years after graduation, basically. Some students use that as an opportunity to travel or do, volunteer work, find a work job afterwards. But again, it takes that gives you another option to really do that experience versus having to find like a sponsor. Some students will do that 2 years, and then maybe you do want to stay in the UK even longer, and you find like a different visa route after that point. But that gives you the 2 years to really build up different experiences within the UK outside of the classroom. And I think for a lot of students, like they do take that opportunity just because you get a couple years in the UK if you're doing undergrad or 1 year in the with the masters, but there's always still more you want to do in London for sure. And I should mention too with PhD, a lot of those programs it will be 3 years for graduate route. So definitely, if you're looking at one of those programs, just double check the visa pages that we have for guidance.
Yes, good advice. And again, when in doubt, reach out for help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a dedicated visa team, so they're gonna be able to answer any questions you have about the process or those regulations around the graduate route and other things.
Beauty. Okay, well, we are rapidly approaching the close of our time together. We have time for a couple of more questions if anyone has anything last minute. Otherwise, I've got one more in the chamber for you, and it is thus. What are some hidden gems or maybe the best kept secret on campus that you can let us in on here?
Ooh, yeah, hidden gems. That's a good one. Um, that is a good question. Trying to pick a favorite. Um, I mean, like I think my personal when I was on campus is I did like the food market just because that was such a nice experience to have like a little impromptu food market on campus on Thursdays. I think facilities too, there's just, like our campus, there is just so many cool like labs you can kind of see through observation decks. Like you can walk around and just see a lot of different facilities, even if you aren't in that program. Um, yeah, but yeah, I think just hidden gems too, just walking around the outside of campus, there's just really gorgeous architecture, which I think that's one of my favorite things of London is you get that mix of, modern and kind of more historical architecture. But yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head.
You can prep for next time. In the
Yeah,
interim, we've
I'm
got,
gonna have to have that one in mind for the next one.
yeah, yeah, put it on the list. We've got our friend Carrie. Carrie, go ahead.
I was wondering if degrees like engineering they would translate to like to Canada. Like if I studied in the UK and then I came back to Canada, would I have to take a test or could I just work?
Yeah, so typically if there are maybe the field you're going into, there's specific certifications in Canada, you might need to look into that about how that would work when you come back. But generally, like our degrees, they are globally recognized, they are accredited, so you aren't gonna, have a degree that isn't recognized in general. But I would just say same thing with like programs like medicine or other routes. Just if there are exams that you have to take, make sure you know how to apply for that once you come back. And our academic schools too, they're going to have resources if you have questions about things that you might need to apply for programs coming back. So sorry, losing my voice again.
And how would you compare that university to universities in Canada, such as the University of Toronto and the University of British Columbia?
Ooh, that's actually a tough one because I'm not as familiar with their courses. Um, I'd say in general, like when you are comparing courses in Canada versus the UK, really look at our module list for the programs because that's going to give you a little bit more specifics about what you're going to be studying in that particular course, elective lists. That's a great place to kind of see what the differences are. It's the same thing if you're studying different universities in the UK. It's really going to depend on the faculty that are teaching, kind of the area of focus. Because obviously history at one program or engineering at one school is going to be very different than engineering at another university. But yeah, I'm not as familiar with those universities programs, unfortunately, so I can't really add on to that.
For a bit of context, U of T and UBC are typically number one and two sort of in Canada every year. So Imperial being number two in the world for 2025 implies that it is certainly on par with either of those schools here in Canada. I can't speak, of course, to the programs, but overall university rankings, very comparable indeed.
I know I learned something about Canadian universities now, so
There you go. I'm a bit of a partisan having gone to U of T myself. So,
love it.
Carrie, any other questions for you?
Yes, on one of the previous slides, you listed civil and environmental engineering on the same bullet point. Is that in the same degree or are they two separate degrees?
For the listing of the programs that I had.
Yes, do you offer like civil engineering or do you offer like a degree of civil and environmental together?
We have to see if we do have a dual degree. I don't have that off the top of my head exactly if we have that specific combination.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Carrie, for weighing in, and everybody else for taking the time out to attend our session, ask some questions. We are at time, so yeah, really do appreciate it. We'll share the recording, of course. Carmen, any
Awesome.
parting words of wisdom from you? Anything we should take away before we let you go?
I mean, just and if you have questions or things that are a little bit more specific that I can answer tonight, please do feel free to reach out. We can definitely follow up with that. But I think just parting words, definitely don't be afraid to ask. We are always happy to help put you in the right direction and get the information for you. So
Beauty. Well, thanks very much, Carmen, for your time and your expertise, and everybody else for attending. Have a great evening.
thank you so much, everyone.